Hello everyone, welcome back to MovieRecaps. Today I'll introduce you to a 2011 Czech movie named Men in Hope. Be aware there are spoilers. The movie opens up with our main character Andre carrying many presents and waiting for his father-in-law Rudolph, who is a taxi driver and seems to be leaving his date's place. Rudolph is late, and Andre says his wife Alisa will eat him alive. On their way home, it turns out Andre knows about what Rudolph has been up to, and is told to cover for him. Rudolph mentions another girl he dates and says Andre would love her legs too, but Andre points out he's a married man and knows his obligations. Rudolph then tells him a story that a 35-year-old customer just died in his car due to sudden heart failure, and he is 65 now, so doesn't have much time to waste. Moments later, they arrive, but Andre reminds Rudolph that he's just a bad liar before heading inside. Unsurprisingly, Andre's wife Alisa is mad at him for being late, and Rudolph can be seen chalking his finger behind. Rudolph's wife Marta asks him what takes them so long, to which he bluntly replies that he went to meet his mistress, who's obsessive with him. Andre and Alisa are shocked by his words, but Marta just smiles and tells him to stop bragging. She checks Rudolph's hand and tells Alisa that they were just playing pool. Rudolph then tells Marta that they will play pool on Friday night, making Andre lie with him as well. The family then proceeds to celebrate the little kid's birthday. Unlike the happy old couple, Alisa seems to be still mad at Andre. Later that evening, the old couple is having vigorous bedtime exercise next door, which causes the kid to ask Andre if they are fighting. He soon puts him onto the bed and says they are just playing games. Andre complains about why they can't control themselves a little bit, but Alisa says they can top their noise if he wants. Andre tells her he doesn't want to force her if she's still mad, while he's already stretching. Turns out Alisa wants a second child very much, and she even shows him the sketch she made for the house renovation. Later, she takes out some hats her mother knitted and asks him which one he likes. The next day, Rudolph complains that they are returning to matrilineality nowadays, and he can't imagine what the future is like for his little grandson. When a girl takes the kid's scooter, the two encourage him to get it back. The kid then pushes the girl away and causes her to scream, making her parent berate the two for not educating the boy properly. When they are heading back, Andre asks how Rudolph still desires his wife after seeing her body for so many years and having fun with many other women. Rudolph discloses that he records all the beautiful girls he sees in his mind like a camera, and every time he walks into his bedroom, he just closes his eyes and sees whatever he wants to see. Imagine the wife does the same to him. Andre and Alisa run a small restaurant, but don't get many customers. Andre loves cooking and wants to be the chef, but Alisa comforts him and says they should let Louis do the job as he is professional and a native French. Andre points out Louis's mother just went into labor during a stopover in Paris, and she was too poor to even order in a French restaurant. Later, the customer asks for Andre's recommendation.
Chcete se najíst opravdu dobře? Tak změňte podnik.
Friday night, Rudolph meets up with Andre, who's actually warming up for playing pool. Rudolph can't believe Andre is so dumb that he didn't realize it's just an alibi for him to date another girl. Soon Rudolph's new date Sarota arrives at the place, which immediately catches Andre's eyes. Rudolph introduces Andre and Sarota to each other before going to order some drinks. Andre thinks Rudolph should be more responsible for his own health, as the girl can literally mess with his blood pressure. Rudolph points out that if Andre wants a happy marriage like him, he should imitate him instead of being a domestic man. In addition, he can tell Alisa starts getting bored now, which is why she wants a second child so bad. Noticing a girl smiling at Andre, he even encourages him to make a move. Andre thinks Rudolph must be crazy to convince him to cheat on his own daughter, but Rudolph tells him well done, infidelity can save marriages. Rudolph then proceeds to play pool with Sarota, who takes off her panties to tie her hair up. While Sarota is playing, the two men of culture lean back on the chair and are impressed by the girl's skills, just like everyone clicking on this video. When they leave, Rudolph takes away Andre's jacket and gives it to Sarota. Rudolph mentions his past as a roller coaster designer before retirement and invites Sarota to try one of his designs nearby. The two leave in Rudolph's car, making Andre have to walk home. However, it soon starts raining heavily, and Andre returns home soaking wet. He puts a thermometer into his mouth, but Alisa tells him it's her pregnancy test. The result is still negative despite the fact they have tried so long. Alisa notes that the doctor said she's completely healthy, but they don't know if Andre is healthy too. The next day, Alyssa takes a reluctant Andre to the hospital. The nurse says they are late and only have 10 minutes left, but Alyssa says that's more than enough time for him.
Emotional damage!
Andre walks into a small room to collect his stuff. And why the fuck do they put a big picture of a baby here? Anyway, Andre starts to imagine that Sarota seduces him and rides on top of him. As he's submerging himself in the fantasy, Alice's urging brings him back to reality, and he comes out with an empty cup. Later that day, before the restaurant is closed, Sarota comes to the place. Andre then tells the cook to get off and cook a dish on his own. He thinks Sarota is here for Rudolph, but she is actually coming to return the jacket. However, things get steamy when Sarota says she forgot the cloth at her place and asks Andre to take it himself. Then the scene fast forward to the two just done exercising and lying on the hammock. Sarota tells him that compared to Rudolph, she prefers dorks like him, as they turn into beasts on bed. Just then, two girls walk out from other rooms, revealing Sarota's roommates have been there all the time. A timid Andre soon puts on his clothes and goes back home. He lies to Alyssa, saying he bumped into an old friend and went to have some drinks. However, the perfume on his jacket does not go unnoticed. What's worse is that she discovers Sarota's panties in the pocket. While getting confronted, Andre says it's Rudolph's girlfriend. Very soon, Rudolph gets kicked out of the house by Marta, and Alyssa refuses to let him in as well. He goes to the shed for the night and blames Andre for breaking his clean record of 35 years. There he showed Andre the photos of 138 women he slept with, which were also the inspiration for his design. He also adds that he always feels kind of sad that Marta never asked about his work or asked to try his design. On the other side, Marta brings Rudolph's pills and sweater to Alyssa, instructing her how to use the medicine. Alyssa is confused about why Marta still cares about Rudolph after getting cheated on, but Marta reveals that she'd be worn out if she were worried about each of his flings. It turns out that Marta saw the photos, but Rudolph was never aware of it. Alyssa doesn't understand why Marta forgave him, but Marta says she didn't want to take her dad away from Alyssa, especially since she loved him so much. But Marta points out that what makes her sadder than those women is that Rudolph never offered her to experience what he built all around the world.
Měla jsi mu ten jeho kompas ukroutit.
Prosím tě, to by byla škoda. Víš, jaká s ním byla zábava? A pořád ještě je. Pořád.
Besides, Marta knows when the guilty Rudolph comes to reconcile, he will buy her the expensive Valentino purse.
My to si necháš takhle cino koupit.
Jak lacino? Víš, kolik za ní chtěj? Mailand.
To už hraničí s prostitucí.
Ališi, dovol. Jak to se mnou mluvíš?
Marta says what matters is that Rudolph will get back to her at the end of the day. The next day, Rudolph returns the panties to Sarota and says he got kicked out for it. But Sarota brings him another bad news, that she has met someone else, much disappointing Rudolph. Elsewhere, a happy Marta already walks on the street with the new purse. When she is giving a busker some money, two suspicious men are staring at her purse. Shortly after, the two guys snatch her purse but only take away the money, making Marta smugly laugh at their ignorance. Back at home, Rudolph is spreading rose petals around to surprise Marta. But when he opens the door, it's an officer bringing the new purse and notifying him of the tragedy. The sudden death leaves Rudolph in grave sorrow, and when one of his girlfriends invites him to her place, he simply declines. One day when the phone rings, he mistakes the iron for the phone, resulting in injuring his ear. Turns out it was Alyssa calling, who was worried about him, because Rudolph didn't open his curtains all day. She soon discovers Rudolph has indulged in excessive drinking recently, and tells him he can't go on like this. She suggests that he plays pool with Andre or goes find one of his girlfriends. Rudolph is left dumbfounded when Alyssa reveals that Marta had known about those women and photos the whole time, but she had already forgiven him. On the other side, Andre starts exercising more with Sarota under the excuse of playing tennis with a friend. At night, Alyssa also wants to have some fun with him, although he was already drained during the day. But in reality, Alyssa tries to collect his load, and the doctor says her husband is as fine as a 20-year-old. I have to say the plot doesn't make sense, as you are supposed to abstain from ejaculation for 3 days or something, while this dude just emptied his nuts hours ago. Another day, Andre drives to the woods and claps Sarota in the car. Unknown to them, they manage to turn a field trip into sexuality education. Suddenly, Sarota hits the gear stick, leading them to bump into a tree. Later, he lies to Alyssa that the brake is broken, and insists that they need a bigger and safer car, even though Alyssa thinks it's unnecessary. Miraculously, Cheating on his wife makes Andre cook better dishes and become more confident. Hence, he makes the cook a waiter and becomes the chef of the restaurant. The restaurant starts getting more and more customers, and eventually Andre is able to afford a bigger car to play tennis with Sarota. This time, he learned from the lesson and take extra protection before sweating together with Sarota. Another day, while Andre is kneading bread dough, he suddenly starts having some aggressive cuddling with Alyssa, and the customer is amused by the noise inside. A while later, Alyssa is impressed by his stamina and thinks it's because of the tennis. When making cookies with Rudolph, Alyssa shares the changes in Andre, who she thinks becomes more enthusiastic. Seeing Alyssa being this happy, Rudolph realizes Andre must be up to something. Later, while decorating the Christmas tree, Rudolph warns Andre to end his affair before too late. He says once Alyssa finds out the truth, she will cut off his Johnson, stuff it into the meat grinder and make a burger with it. Just then, Sarota calls his phone and appears outside of his home, claiming she has a gift for him. Therefore, Andre pretends to take out the trash and meets Sarota, who is wearing the lingerie Andre sent as a gift. Sarota says it should be one size bigger though, and give him a tennis racket as the old one is way too suspicious. Apparently, Sarota starts wanting their relationship more than just sexual now. Back at home, it turns out Andre just bought the exact same lingerie for Alyssa and Sarota. But it's one size bigger for Alyssa here. Alyssa doesn't mind, saying it'll fit once she's pregnant. Sometime later, Andre finds Sarota talking to Alyssa at the restaurant. He thinks he's fucked and quickly rushes to get rid of the meat grinder. However, Alyssa tells him the girl is applying for a waitress job, to which she agrees as they have more customers now. Besides, those female assets will definitely attract even more customers. But what Andre doesn't expect is that Alyssa even hires Sarota to look after her father. Andre pretends to be mad that Alyssa plants a young girl while Rudolph is still mourning his wife's death, but Alyssa thinks she may help get his mind off the tragedy. Later, when their kid is away at his aunt's, Alyssa proposes they take the opportunity to play tennis. But apparently Andre is not good at it, making him have to blame the new bat for it. Some days later, Andre sneaks into Rudolph's house when he leaves for a night shift. He confronts Sarota about getting into his life, but Sarota confesses she's in love with him now and proceeds to lift the curtain, causing a scared Andre to crouch down immediately. She takes off her cloth and dares Andre to get on the bed at risk of getting discovered. A while later, Alyssa sees Sarota riding someone next door and gets horny. Andre soon gets a call from her, asking him to come back sooner at night. Andre then lies that he can't make it home at night due to the heavy snow. Something is indeed heavy here, but not the snow. The next morning, when Rudolph puts a rose at Marta's memorial, he notices a tulip there, much to his confusion. He quickly heads back home and starts to notice more tulip elements all around the house. While going through Marta's stuff, he finds a photo of her with another man. Meanwhile, in Sarota's room, Andre immediately gets dressed up and climbs out of the window. When he gets down, he finds Rudolph pouring Marta's ashes on the street. He quickly runs up and stops Rudolph, who tells him that tulips are all around the house, whereas he thought she liked roses for his whole life. The other guy is actually Marta's masseur, and she had done massage for 15 years. Rudolph is furious and swears to find the man. Man cheated on his wife more than 100 times, and now is mad that his wife cheated on him. When Andre gets home, Alyssa is already horny as fuck and starts undressing Andre for the morning exercise. Sarota walks out the bathroom and happens to see the busy couple, but can only walk away jealously. Elsewhere, awaiting Rudolph finally sees the masseur coming to his wife's memorial, who turns out to be blind. Rudolph pretends to be a random passerby and approaches to speak with him. And he gets to know his wife just wanted someone who actually knew her and desired to look at her. Later at night, Rudolph watches some old photos alone, reminiscing the happy time with Marta. The next day, Alyssa comes to collect the laundry left outside and meets Sarota, who's collecting as well.
Hezký korzet. Ještě jsem ho na tobě neviděla. Já tak často nenosím. Je mi malý. Aha.
After getting some
Emotional damage!
Alyssa then becomes suspicious about Andre and Sarota. At the restaurant, Alyssa starts to pay attention to the two, but Louis suddenly grabs her bottom from behind, revealing she used to cheat on Andre as well. Shortly after, Alyssa sees Andre calling someone, and after he leaves, she finds a note with a restaurant name in it. Later the day, when Rudolph drives his taxi around, he sees Andre walking into a fancy restaurant with tennis rackets. Inside, Sarota is excited and happy to finally have such a romantic date with Andre. However, the reason why they aren't meeting on a bed this time is that Andre decides to end their relationship as he doesn't want to lose his wife. Sarota is much disappointed and angry, and orders the most expensive dishes in the restaurant. Not long after, Andre is taken aback upon seeing Alyssa arriving at the restaurant. What's worse is that Sarota calls her to join them, forcing Andre to hide under the table. Sarota says she's waiting for his boyfriend and asks her to wait together. Meanwhile, Andre hides between the women and probably shits himself. It bugs me that they are sitting opposite to each other, but become closer at this shot. When the waiter comes again, Sarota says she can't have wine because she's pregnant, shocking both Andre and Alyssa.
Mám jí servírovat sem nebo pod stůl?
Proč pod stůl?
Andre has somehow managed to crawl away behind a passing trolley. I don't know how's it even possible for them not to see him. But whatever, Rudolph also comes here and knows Andre's fucked up big time. Alyssa wonders who is the baby's father, as Sarota is about to unfold the truth. All the lights go out, and the waiters come out with a birthday cake and sing happy birthday to Sarota. Rudolph then shows up behind Sarota, apologizing for being late. He acts surprised seeing Alyssa here, and explains Sarota has been more than just a maid for him. He indirectly makes Sarota understand that this will be a better option for everyone, which Sarota seems to accept. Although Alyssa is surprised and thinks Rudolph goes a bit too far for actually forming a family with Sarota, she accepts it anyway on seeing his father being happy. When Alyssa returns home, she sees a candle path decorated with their family photos leading her to the roof. Andre tells her this is for them to be together for 2,431 days. Yep, not suspicious at all. Alyssa loves the romantic surprise and tells Andre she's pregnant as well. Andre takes out the food from the restaurant and says he ordered it for tonight, making Alyssa think she misunderstood Andre. The movie fast forwards to months later when the family leave together in harmony. Andre appreciates Rudolph for helping him, but Rudolph smiles and asks him why he's so sure the kid is his. In the final scene, Rudolph goes to an abandoned amusement park, where he takes the roller coaster while pouring Marta's ashes into the air, making up for the past that he never took her to experience his design. The end. Hit the like button and subscribe for more. Here are another 2 recommended videos. Click to check them out. Hope you enjoy my videos. Until next time.